Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Effie. Since it's Juvenile Arthritis Awareness Month, I decided to ask a few women who are diagnosed with juvenile arthritis, like me, to come and share their stories with the community and also talk about the stigma that surrounds those diagnosed with juvenile arthritis and the phrase we often hear, "you're too young for arthritis," and how that has made us feel and any other changes that have occurred in our lives and how we've dealt with it. Also, we have shared some tips and advice for those living with juvenile arthritis or any family members out there or people who have a friend with the condition and they want to be of help. So stay tuned. I was diagnosed with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, and actually it was the version that's juvenile idiopathic polyarticular arthritis. At 18, I started experiencing symptoms 15 to 16 years old. So I was diagnosed three years later after my onset of symptoms. So that's what they diagnosed me with. And the version that I got diagnosed with can mimic adult rheumatoid arthritis and lead into adulthood. So I've never really known which way I'm, supposed to go, if I'm supposed to be like juvenile arthritis or rheumatoid arthritis. Because a lot of doctors I've talked to, some of them are like, well, you got diagnosed at 18, so you're technically rheumatoid arthritis. And then other doctors are like, well, no, you started having symptoms at 16. I was really active when I was younger. I played a lot of sports and stuff. So one day I woke up and there was a bruise on my wrist. I didn't know what it was. I thought I just injured myself. And then it went away. I was on a canoe trip with some friends and they saw that my knee was swollen. I didn't notice it right away either, but it was like a balloon. And then it lasted about like a week, and it happened again like months later, and I thought it was just like a strain. So I was wearing a brace, and then it went away. And then for like 8 years, I never had an issue with my knee again up until I had a major flare. And that's when the damage in my knee occurred. When I went for my, physical, she was like, oh yeah, nothing's wrong. Like, cause I was saying like my hands kind of look weird, like my knuckles. It's something I noticed, not really what she would notice or anyone else. She's like, no, they're fine. And I was a little taller for my age too. So she was like, it's just growing pains. So I went back the following year and since I was trying out for sports, and she was like, oh yeah, maybe you should go see someone, because at that time it was my sophomore year of high school and my knuckles were a little bit more like enlarged, just a tiny bit. And I had inflammation in my wrist. So that's when she forwarded me to go see a rheumatologist. And yeah, I was diagnosed. I was on biologics, Enbrel and Humira for several years. They worked, but it wasn't enough. And then I'm currently on methotrexate, and I was on low dose prednisone, but I got off. I'm kind of feeling it right now, but I don't want to be on it anymore. The only reason I did get on it is because I had knee surgery and they put me on it. But anyway, so whoever wants to go next, you guys can just share a little bit of how you were diagnosed maybe with juvenile arthritis and all that.
So my story is a lot like yours. I was feeling symptoms when I was quite younger. Like my first symptom was also my wrist and my thumb at 13, and it was just dismissed as like a sprain at the ER, and there's nothing wrong with it in the x-ray. So I got a splint when I was a freshman in high school, and I didn't pass the physical to play tennis because I was trying to get out of PE for the rest of the high school year. Couldn't play tennis, and I actually noticed a bump on my wrist, and that kind of started the whole ER process, and it kept coming back and forth for the next 10 years until I finally had insurance to get that diagnosed. So my doctor also went back and forth, and she had like talked to her colleagues. It was a whole thing, and she didn't know whether to classify me as JIA or as adult rheumatoid arthritis, just because it was diagnosed when I was an adult, but clearly I've had symptoms since I was much younger. So that's also why I kind of float into both.
Yeah.
And just because of the damage I've already experienced, that's why she classifies me as a juvenile idiopathic arthritis. So yeah, that's my story. And then since I got diagnosed in 2019, I have started sulfasalazine and methotrexate and 50,000 units of vitamin D, which is really helpful.
Oh yeah, for sure. When I got diagnosed, they found like mine was severely low. So I think that's the case for a lot of people. But
Yeah, It was crazy to find out.
So my story is I was a sophomore in high school, and I grew up in Saudi Arabia, but I was going to boarding school in Connecticut. And luckily my mom was visiting me at the time, but the day I found out, I was playing water polo, and with water polo, you really got to use your legs, and I couldn't keep myself above water, and I was having a really hard time. So I was like, something's wrong. So I got out of the pool and I looked down at my knee, and it was like 3 times its size. It was really large, and my right knee. And yeah, so luckily my mom was there, because she came down, and me, my coach, and my mom, we all thought I had injured my knee somehow, because I was playing water polo. And so I went and got an MRI. I got like I think I got like a CT scan, and they had to drain my knee and do a ton of blood work. And when the doctor drained my knee, he said that looking at the fluid, he could tell it may be arthritis. And we were very shocked, because we thought I had injured it, but the MRI came back completely fine. Which actually it wasn't fine, but at that time it came back fine. So they were like, it's arthritis. And I'm like, okay. So then I went back to Saudi Arabia, and I had another MRI because my knee blew up again. And so we were like, it's a meniscus tear, like they're not seeing something. So I had a second MRI in Saudi Arabia, and that's when they found a tumor in my knee. And when the surgeon in Saudi went in to get the tumor out, it was benign, thank God. But he said that my joint looked like I was like 65 years old. So that's when they found out it was juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Although at the time, I think they were saying juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Right. Once they took the tumor out, he saw the joint, and he was like, you have arthritis. And that was when I was 15. And I actually didn't start medication. So everybody usually starts medication, but I took 0 meds. I don't know why. Maybe in Saudi they don't do that, but I took 0 meds, and I had surgery, and I went to physical therapy, and I was actually okay. I was in remission for 6 years after that, but then it came back when I was 21.
Oh, wow. That's awesome that like you didn't have to take any meds and you just went into remission.
Yeah, it's weird. But then it came back very aggressively after that.
That's so weird.
For those 6 years, it was nice.
I've been having a hard time like finding people that were diagnosed as juvenile arthritis, because I think we kind of all like not hide, but like go behind the name of rheumatoid arthritis because it's just easier.
So I'm Paulina. Hi, guys.
Hi.
There's 2 Paulinas today.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So I was diagnosed when I was at the age of 18. However, I had symptoms for around a year before that. This is why I guess they diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis, but the symptoms I was having way before I was 18. But anyways, I didn't even question it in the beginning because I had no idea about it. I didn't know anyone with it. I couldn't speak to anyone about it. I didn't even know anything like this existed in our age. So I just sort of went with it. And yeah, the day that it happened, or maybe the day that I noticed something was wrong, is when I woke up one morning and like everything was hurting. I couldn't do the simplest of tasks. I couldn't do my buttons up, do the tea with the kettle, like open the doors with a key. And that was overnight. Like I didn't have this sort of slow progressive, like, oh, this is hurting, this is a little bit inflamed. It just all hit me at once. And I was living in England at that time. And the system there for me, now that I have a comparison of how it is in Germany, it was really slow and not super reliable, I would like to say. So I had a few doctors, to my house doctor, my general practitioner, like the main person, and who just, as per in England, 2 weeks paracetamol. If it doesn't go away, then come back. So I did that, 2 weeks paracetamol, nothing happened. I was still in pain and it was still all inflamed. A few visits later to him, back and forward, nothing was happening. And then one day, me and my mom just got really angry and were like, we just have to go to the emergencies. And I didn't go to the emergencies because I was like, my life was in danger, which usually I only would go there because obviously these people are overworked. But I was like, if I don't get a letter from a doctor at the emergency center, then my GP is not going to do anything. And that's exactly what happened. I went to the emergencies. I told them, this is what I'm having. This is what my GP is telling me, but I can't do this. I can't do that. And then they ordered some tests. And they wrote a letter to my GP, basically telling him, recommending him to recommend me to the specialist. Because in England, you have to be like recommended to each doctor from your GP to be able to go to see someone. And luckily then I went to see a specialist. I was put on methotrexate, the pill form. I think I started at like 25 milligrams every week, and on prednisone. They also gave me a shot, like a prednisone shot into my whole body because of how badly my body was affected. They just wanted something quick, generic, to like at least give me some relief until methotrexate kicks in. But the injection didn't do anything, so they gave me pills afterwards, and I think I was on like 25 as well milligrams of prednisone. And like, I mean, most people probably are aware that you just ease off of it afterwards slowly, week by week. So that's basically what I did for like a month or so. Then I turned into Uncle Google and I started doing all of my research for, okay, so I'm going to be on medication for the rest of my life, but what can I do myself that I can actually maybe help it out a little bit? And that's where I found out like exercise, movement, nutrition, and all of the mental health, how that affects our body as well. And I started working on myself like literally like I've never done before. I was just like, from overnight, I went from someone who would just eat, for example, picked chicken, because at that time I was still eating meat, picked chicken from the bone because I wouldn't want to eat bone, and I had to have plain potatoes and just tomatoes because I didn't like anything else, to overnight saying to my mom, no, we need to buy turmeric and black pepper, and then I need to have salmon, and I need to have more fish, and then I need to do this. So I like completely changed my whole being pretty much overnight as well, because I was just willing to try anything. And then Paulina being Paulina, I decided after 6 months of doing that I'm feeling fabulous and I'm amazing and I don't need medication. So I did that and I stopped overnight my methotrexate, which I really don't recommend anyone doing. It was just a really lucky case. And I actually went into a forced 2-year remission. My doctor was very surprised, and when she found out from me what I started doing and why I stopped my medication, her phrase, which I will remember for the rest of my life, was, oh yeah, that's exactly what you should have done. I was like, cool, so you give me meds, but I need to do my own research to do what I actually should have been doing. But anyways, leaving that apart, I was in remission for 2 years. Then I moved countries and I moved to where I'm living now in Germany. And I think that all of the stress of everything new and all of that played up with my body a lot. And I went and had a flare again. And once again, it was overnight. It was super bad. I couldn't walk. I was limping because it started affecting my ankles and my knees a lot. Whereas the first time around, it was more my upper body. So my wrists, my fingers, and my elbows. And whereas the second time around, it was a lot more like ankles and knees. So, and here I'm so grateful because here you can usually just go to the specialist without a recommendation. So I just went quickly to a orthopedic doctor because my partner was already seeing him and I could get an appointment much quicker to him than to a rheumatoid specialist, which I would have had to wait 3 months for, and that was not happening. So I went there to him, and thank God to him, he literally called one of his rheumatoid specialist doctor friends that he has in his recommendation book, and he got me an appointment in 3 days to her. I did have to wait that day for I think like 2 hours for her to see me because she was fitting me in between of her normal appointments. But he was just told her that, you know, I'm really bad and I have arthritis because I was already diagnosed and I just need a specialist and I just need some medication. So yeah, so I started on that, and then they gave me methotrexate, but the injection form, which I actually prefer. I have much less side effects from it. I know that people sometimes do well on one or the other, so I'm not saying it's better. It's just better for me. And on prednisone, once again, to sort of wait for the methotrexate to kick in. And I think in 5 days, I was back to normal because she did put me on quite a high dose of prednisone. So in 5 days, I sort of got my life back. And then newest addition to this story, which is why I'm so excited to be talking about this story here, is that around 3 weeks ago, I had an MRI done because my left wrist started playing up more than it usually does. And I could feel that it was not normal pain, whatever normal means. And I found out that I've got a lot of inflammation in my left wrist and a ganglion cyst, which is pressing against a nerve. And that's what's shooting pain down my whole arm, which is why I knew this pain was not normal, like it was different. And so now I'm back on prednisone for the next 4 weeks. I started off with 20 milligrams and I'm just easing off of it every week by 5 milligrams. So that is my short / long / my story. What the doctor told me, and I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks, I think. She just told me to start the prednisone and then we can check if the inflammation went down enough. And maybe that will help the ganglion cyst to sort of get smaller as well because there's not so much inflammation around it.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure. So I'm just taking this route at the moment. I trust her. I really don't trust doctors. I have had really bad experiences with doctors and my initial reaction is, no, I know better than you. You don't know what you're doing. Even though you're a doctor, I know better because people told me so. I actually trust her a lot more. So I was just like, okay, I will do this. I go to see her in a couple of weeks and then I'll get to talk to her properly because I actually got the prednisone and like her solution as to what we should do via email. So I was just emailing with her. There was no reason. It was just literally to get medication. So yeah, so I'll go to see her and then I'll update you guys, but I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I had a cyst too, like back in the day on my wrist, and then when I started Embra, it disappeared. So usually it's just inflammation. All right, well, that was interesting. Thanks for sharing your stories, everyone. And then I just wanted to like move on to like a couple of points, like, you know, when we hear the phrase "you're too young for arthritis," I wanted to know if like any of you have heard that at all. If you did hear that, did it impact you emotionally, mentally? If you, how did you respond to it? I mean, I heard so many people tell me, "Oh, you're too young," or "You poor thing." I think it did make me feel a little bit bad in the beginning years because, I mean, how are you really supposed to respond to something like that? I mean, it's awkward for the person hearing it. I just don't think like the people saying it mean bad, but I think they just are expressing their emotions sometimes and they don't really think how it will impact someone else. But now that I'm a little bit older, I don't really find it like too like offensive or like too hurtful, but I want to see what you guys think about that at all.
I get that all the time. I work with kids, and there's no way explaining to a 16-year-old why you're limping and can't play basketball with them because they'll just ask you like 100 times, like, what do you mean you have arthritis? Are you old? Are you secretly old? Like, no, man. And even, I mean, the adults are 15 times worse, I feel, because like, you know how hard it is when people like say stuff to you about your like appearance and things like that. So I think people who also say like, you shouldn't be exercising, you wouldn't have arthritis, and I'm like, nope, that's not how it works, because I swear I was doing a lot better and actually got through university because like I was working out and I was powerlifting. And I think when I stopped that, my whole body just decided to switch it up and attack me even more than ever. So I think just hearing people say that you're too young, or I don't know, the judgment you feel when you're in a wheelchair and or you're sitting in a seat in a public transportation and somebody's looking at you to get up and you're like, if I get up, I will fall. Like, I can't move. So I don't know. It's really hard. I think in Europe, I saw those little pins that they have that show that you have an invisible illness. I think that's wonderful that like the government actually cares enough to like enforce those and have it available. But like, I don't know. I feel like if I wore that here, I would get like, oh, you're too young to have an illness like that. Because I get that like even just parking at a grocery store, I can't park in a handicapped spot without feeling extremely self-conscious. And I try to park in the furthest handicapped spot so I don't look like so horrible walking out of my car, like, and there's like an old person, you know, right there. And I don't know. I constantly feel guilty because of comments like that.
Yeah, I mean, I still sometimes do that myself. Like if there is a handicapped spot that's like right in the front, I try to avoid it sometimes. But I mean, I made that video about that, but I still find myself having those moments too, where I'm like, I'll just walk.
Oh, I was about the whole handicap sticker for the car. I was actually like eligible to get one, and I'm like, I'm not going to do it because I was like too nervous about what people would see when they see me walking. Even though I was using a cane at the time, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. So what bothered me when people said you're too young to have it, it doesn't bother me now. Now I laugh and I'm like, research and like, come on, don't say that's ridiculous. But when I was younger, I didn't have this social media, and I didn't know a single person with arthritis. So when people would say that to me, I would get really upset because, as you guys know, I've talked about this before, but I joined a support group when it all came back, and I was like 20 or 21. And it was only like 70-year-old women, and they were all very nasty, very rude, very negative. They were all like the end of their life. I mean, there were 80-year-olds in there, and they were so rude to me, and they told me that the methotrexate is going to kill me, and they were awful. It was terrible, absolutely terrible. So when people would be like, oh, you're too young for arthritis, like that's for old people, it would make me so upset and so sad because I didn't have a community, and I didn't know a single person my age that had it. So every time they said that, it like really hurt me. So if anyone's listening that doesn't have arthritis, that's not nice to say. And do your research. If you don't know what, like, if don't say mean things like that's mean, it's rude. That was the only reason it bothered me, was because I didn't know anybody my age. So I was thinking in my head, I was like, yeah, it is for old people. Why do I have this? And then I would go down like this spiral of like, oh my God, my life sucks. Why do I have this? I don't understand. So, but now I'm like, oh God, let's talk about it. But yeah, so that was my experience with it.
Yeah, for me, initially, because obviously now my mental thoughts and just my opinion about it all and my reaction to it has changed. But in the beginning, when I was first diagnosed, and then I would tell people, first of all, I wouldn't even tell many people, actually. I was sort of keeping it to myself and trying to be normal. But when someone did say it to me, and it was funnily enough, mostly adults or like people my age. I mean, I was 18, so I mean, yeah, okay, we're teenagers, but you sort of should expect people to have a little bit more in their brain at that point. And I was getting that comment, oh, you're too young to have this. I actually, back in those years, I would react very angry and sort of like explosive, I might even say. Like, now I'm a completely different person. But back then, it would just frustrate me so much and make me so angry. I would literally turn around to these people and be like, yeah, because I am making this up for what? Like, yeah, cool, I'm taking these pills every single week, but it's just a made up disease, you know? Like, I'm just fine, and I'm just completely lying to you for, I don't know, attention, or what is it that I want to gain from this? And that was sort of my reaction initially. I was just getting very angry that people don't trust something that just makes no sense to make up. Like, if someone does make up things like this, then I think they really need help, because this is not something that you want to just bring onto yourself and say something that you have that you don't have. Like, this is just like the complete opposite of what you should be doing in your mind. So yeah, initially I was getting very angry, very frustrated at humanity, and probably also why I didn't have a lot of friends, because it was just like, if you're going to talk to me like that and you don't trust what I'm saying, then you don't deserve to be in my circle. And I would just push people away because I just couldn't deal with it myself. It was just getting too much. But now that I meet so many amazing women with it, and people, not just women, but men as well, just such a big community. And I think sort of finding out this community and meeting people has made me realize that actually these people that say this, they actually say it because, like you, Ali, said, they just don't have the research. When you look on the media, when there are things being advertised for arthritis, it is older people there. Like, it's just, no one ever talks to their children or in school or in whatever lesson that this is a condition that's not defined by age. So I think that when people do say that, their intent is probably not to hurt you and not to not believe you, but it's just what's been engraved in their mind. Like, okay, no, arthritis is for this people because this is what's shown on the advertisements for things about arthritis. Or the people that I've heard have arthritis tend to be older. So I think that sort of taught me, seeing this community, it taught me that when people do say it, they're just not educated about it. And that's sort of when my initial feeling of like, I need to shout about it now. And now every single person who meets me is going to know that I have this, and so that they can be educated, so that they will never say something like that to someone else. So that's sort of when that whole feeling of like, it's my duty to talk about it, shout about it, and tell people about it came in, so that I can help in that process of educating people about it. Because social media, not social media, but like advertisement and things like that don't tend to do a good job with it. But yeah, that's sort of my take. And that's how big of a shift I did mentally for it, because yeah, it was really bad back then.
Yeah, and kind of tying into what Allie said about her support group, like in my beginning years, I went to like a swim class. And so it was like a group swim class that you would sign up for, and it was like aquatic therapy, and it was all like 70, 80-year-olds. The men were really nice. They were like, flirty, whatever. I'm like, okay. But, like they never really asked me like, why you're here. They were more accepting, but I think it's also because they were all in the pool and they were feeling good. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, that was like a time in my life. I'm like, oh my God, there's like no one my age in these classes either, so I was just like, okay, well, I guess this is just an old people disease. And it kind of got to my head a little bit. And then recently when I was searching for a new rheumatologist, I went and saw 4 different ones. And one of the nurses was like, oh, like, you're so young for this. And I was just like, I hadn't heard that from a nurse in a while. And I knew right then and there, like, that wasn't the office for me, because I'm like, if this nurse is going to say this to me every day, if I see her, oh, you're so young, or you poor thing. I'm like, I don't really want to, you know what I mean? At this age that I'm at right now, I don't want to hear that, because I already know that, same with like your body and like physical changes. Like when you're younger, like I started losing weight a little bit, and my friends were like, oh my God, what happened to you? They didn't think I was like eating. I don't know how you guys handled like that change within your bodies, and if it was a little bit hard for you. We can go through that question and then wrap up. But yeah, I just wanted to know, because for me personally, like how I was 5-10 years ago physically, like isn't how I am now. Like I have a scar on my knee, I have like other damage. So that was, I think, the hardest part for me. I don't know about how you guys have dealt with that, if you have any similarities.
Sorry, this always makes me really emotional. I'm working through a lot of that body dysmorphia, and it just constantly comes and goes. So when I was in high school, after so I moved here when I was 12 from India, and quickly I started my menstrual cycle. So my life basically started to like snowball really quickly, and a lot of these things were happening that I'm sure somebody would have caught on, but obviously because things are moving so fast, and like there's just not a lot of like support, especially for young kids who look healthy. So when I started gaining weight, I ended up actually developing anorexia in high school, and I lost a ton of weight. So when I started methotrexate and started losing weight again, everyone in my life was like freaking out because they thought that I was not eating again, but it was just this disease like causing my body to lose weight, and then next moment I'm gaining weight. And I just never understood why people ever feel comfortable like commenting on other people's weight and like what their body looks like. And I mean, people always used to say like, oh, you have such thick hair. And I still have a lot of hair left, but it's not nearly half as much as it used to be. And just those things are kind of difficult to get used to. And I mean, I was sobbing on the morning that Romy proposed to me, because I was in my Harry Potter robes, something you're not supposed to look cute in. It's supposed to be baggy, but I had the biggest meltdown, and I didn't even know that it was supposed to be a good day. We were just going to Universal, and I'm having like a full meltdown in the room, and I went from wanting to be a cop to not being able to get out of bed on my own. So a lot of that has been mourning for me, and probably a good thing. I definitely don't think I would have been a good cop. I would have definitely been the cops that were, well, I guess good for, you know, social justice, bad for like sticking with my cop friends. So I think it's all worked out for the best, but it's still difficult to think about how much I've lost along the way. Like just 5 years ago, I was deadlifting twice my body weight, and then a year after, like I couldn't even move. So it kind of feels, I hate that we all relate to this, but it does kind of feel comforting having other women and men who also go through this too.
For me in high school, it did drastically change my life, and definitely my adult life as well. So in high school, I did go into remission, but I still wasn't great. Like my knee definitely declined, and after surgery, I had to go through physical therapy, but I was never myself again. And before I got diagnosed and before all this happened, I was a really good swimmer, like really good. I had swam my whole life. I went to the Junior Olympics twice, and I was doing really well in high school. And so I was swimming to go to university. So I was going to end up going to university for swimming, and like it was going to be junior year, and we were going to have like people, you know, like recruiters coming out and looking, and I was doing really great with my times, and I was a breaststroker. And after being diagnosed and it not just being an injury, but being a autoimmune disease, I just, even though I wasn't on medication, being a breaststroker is really difficult after you've had surgery because your knees like go like this. And so my body, I couldn't do it anymore. So when that swim season came, it was super, I was like really depressed because I wasn't the person I used to be. And at that moment I realized like I'm not going to be able to go to university for swimming anymore. Like that can't be my career. That can't be my future anymore. And I was very athletic growing up. Like I swam all year round. I even swam in the summer. I was very competitive. Like I said, I went to the Junior Olympics. Like it was my life. Swimming was my life. I even went to high school. Well, I went to boarding school. So I went to that boarding school for the swim program. Like it was my entire life. So I really had to change after I got diagnosed. And it was really hard. And it was really sad. And all my friends were on the swim team, and I didn't have to quit. I stayed, but it was really hard to just have to, you kind of go by lane by how fast you are, and I had to go down the lane, and I was like, it was really hard. And then I didn't end up going to university for it, and I actually quit working out in total because I was like, if I can't swim, I'm done. So I completely stopped. And that was another thing that made me really sad because I was always athletic. I didn't start up till 2 years ago. And then for the adult life, I wanted to be like how you said you wanted to be a cop. I work in the film industry, and I wanted to work on set. I wanted to be on set every day, but I found out I couldn't because when my arthritis came back, I had to have surgery again. And then I was on crutches and I was on a cane, and I was like, you can't be on set because you have to work 16-hour days. And so then I had to get an office job, which ended up being great, and I'm really happy for it. And I still work in the film industry, and you still can work in the film industry and do an office job. But that's how it affected 2 big parts of my life.
Right, okay, so from my side, how the body changes affected my life. I'm also a partner dancer, so I'm a dancer of Kizomba, and back just before my diagnosis, in general, I've been dancing for pretty much my whole life, but just before I was diagnosed and just before I started having those pains and aches, I was actually a little bit extreme with my dancing. Like I would go dancing pretty much 6 times out of 7 every single week. And I started getting better at it. And I was actually, and I mean, still am pretty good at it. It comes very naturally to me. So I started getting more involved with teachers and helping with running the lessons and actually sort of teaching myself, but without actually doing any qualifications or certifications for it. So I wanted, at that time, I was envisioning myself becoming a dance teacher, traveling the world every weekend, being in a different country and teaching in different festivals and teaching in different locations and being up all night because dancing lessons are late afternoon, and then you have a 5, 6, 7, 8 hour party of just dancing with everyone there. So I wanted that to be my life, and I would honestly love for that to be my life, because dance is the biggest passion, the biggest thing that I, like, my original little baby, I would like to say. And then when I was diagnosed, and when I first started experiencing the pains, and then I started Googling about what it is and finding out that, yeah, well, I'm going to have this for the rest of my life, and these flares and these pains will come and go. I realized that my traveling every weekend to a different country is probably not the best idea for my body unless I want to feel really crappy every single day. So I had to adjust, and I still do dance. I mean, not now, Corona situation. But before that, I would still go dancing, and it took a long time for me to accept that I need to pace myself, that I need to really know how many spoons I have and if I can go dancing. And if I didn't, then I'd have to not go. Or I would go dancing and then I would overdo it, and halfway through the night, if it was a 6-hour night, halfway through the night, I would literally just be sitting and watching people dance because I couldn't move anymore. My ankles would just start giving up on me so quickly. And it took me a long time to accept that that is just how it's going to be, and sort of find happiness within it, that I can still do it. I just need to pace myself and trust my body that this is what's best for me long term. So I would much rather, let's say, go dancing once a week than go dancing 6 times a week and then be off for 2 months, or go dancing once a week and go every single week. So I had to realize that long-term wise, if I still want to continue doing what I love, I just need to pace myself, and sort of like you, Ali, said, you were still doing it, but just a little bit less. So you were still satisfying your passion and trusting and accepting what your body is telling you. But that took me a long time. In the beginning, I think I was in denial, and I was like, no, I'm not feeling bad. I'm just going to still continue dancing. And I went dancing 6 times a week, which would always be like work. Then after work and during work, but that's another story, I would sleep, then come back home, I would eat, take a nap, go dancing. And then on the way back, if I wasn't driving, I would nap in the car, then come home, nap, and go to work, and the same thing every single day. So it was literally sleep, nap throughout the whole day, work, and then dance. And that was all I was doing. And I think I did that for a good 2 months before I realized that, no, I really need to stop. Otherwise, my body's just going to give up on me even more. So that's the dancing part. And then when I was diagnosed, and now this is sort of what I do a lot more than dancing, especially during Corona times, is yoga. Yoga, I discovered, is also something that is so magical to me, more around the time of my diagnosis. I then started going to yoga lessons, and it was all great. I was in remission, so it was also feeling quite fine, and I was actually doing the more powerful yoga, the Ashtanga yoga, which involves a lot more like body movement and not so much smooth and breath and meditation. So it was just more like go, go, go. And now that I started having a flare back in Germany, and I restarted my yoga a lot more this year, I would like to say, I had to accept and find that balance once again. That, okay, I used to be able to do this with my body, but now I can still do it. It just looks and feels a little bit differently. And I had to really accept and come back to that whole moment of, it doesn't matter as long as I'm doing it and I'm making myself feel better and good rather than worse. So yeah, I think I answered the question. I always around the story, but I'm I think you guys probably know this already, but I am so passionate about turning things into the positive. And I don't just say this because I want to help other people, but saying it actually helps me as well. Saying it out loud, being like, okay, yeah, it was crappy, but then you can do this, and then you can bring yourself back up, reminds me, because sometimes I still push myself too much, and I have to go back to that whole, inner voice that I keep shouting and preaching other people about and being like, no, actually, I need a break too. Not just the people that I'm telling to take a break. So yeah, I always like to end on a more positive note.
And like speaking of positivity, like when I was younger, I started going to see an occupational therapist, and I was studying like journalism and writing in college. And she asked me like, what am I doing and studying in school? And I told her, and she's like, well, are you sure you want to do that? Because you're going to be using your hands a lot. And I was like, well, yeah, I do. So when she said that to me, it kind of like made me think, well, should I go into something else? And I was thinking going into acupuncture, nursing, other things. But then I was like, no, you know, you're going to be using your hands then too. So why not just stick to something I'm passionate about? And with my hands and everything that have been impacted the most, I would say, writing for me has been difficult because I'm a freelance writer. I'm working on a children's book and other books right now, but being able to sit down like 3 to 4 hours straight like I used to is not as easy anymore. Like I have to be mindful, take breaks, and make sure like to do stretches or whatever, you know, because before I would kind of neglect myself in that sense. But, you know, I just feel if anyone's watching, you have a career aspiration, you want to do something, it is doable. I met a lot of writers out there, and they use a program called Dragon Speaking, where you like speak into the computer and transcribe. But it's hard because, you know, when you write, you like internalize everything in your mind and then write it out on paper, you know what I mean, or on the computer. It's really hard to do that when you talk, you know, so it's not the same. So I haven't tested it out yet. I did get it a few years ago. I have not set it up. Professional procrastinator with that, but eventually I do want to try it because I feel like I am going to need it in the future, you know, because with my hands and everything, it's just not as easy anymore to sit and type. But, and yeah, and going back to like the friend stuff, like, you know, we were all growing up at the same time, and I feel like a lot of them didn't understand and how the medicine impacted my body, or even the disease in general, when you can lose weight and gain weight. And not just medication does that, the disease itself. And a lot of people don't know that either, that even if your medication is working for you, you can still lose weight, gain weight just because of the disease and anything else that's underlying going on. So, you know, there are comments about my eating disorder, if I had one, it really hurt at the time, because I know people personally who have that, and it's serious. It's a very complicated disease. So for me, I didn't take that lightly when some acquaintances suggested or implied that I had that. You know, when I lost weight after a flare, like I was like 135, and then I went down to like 120. So I lost like 15 pounds within a month at that time. So it was a drastic change for everyone to see, but I feel like people need to be more mindful, because a lot of the comments that I was getting from people, these people weren't like fit themselves, you know what I mean? Their bodies weren't like ready for GQ or whatever, women's health. So it's like, that's why I don't really understand why people tend to want to make comments about other people's body when they need to work on themselves as well at the same time. So, but yeah, to wrap it up, I just wanted to, you know, have everyone share a piece of advice or tips for anyone out there living with juvenile arthritis, or anyone who's newly diagnosed, or a family member or friend who may be watching this that has someone in their life with this disease.
For me, I spent a huge chunk of the beginning of my illness trying to figure it out by myself. And do not do that to yourself. Let people in. If you don't have one person, like a bunch of people that you trust, find a person online. There's so many of us, and we all have been through it one way or another. And even if our experience won't be the same, we can still be there in silence. Because the day I let people in, and the day everyone found out what was going on, I actually felt more support than I thought I would. So just, it's out there if you're looking for support.
Yes, 100%. Don't do this alone. Find a community, not a community of people in their 80s, but a community of people your age. It just helps to vent it out, to talk about it, to connect with people who understand what you're going through. If you are somebody listening to this and you know somebody with arthritis, show them guide them to our pages, to those friends, and also learn from it and learn how and understand what they're going through. And also, even if you're not comfortable about it, but bringing awareness. So like you said about your friends not knowing, once I started talking about it and really like sharing about it, a lot of my friends who I grew up with in Saudi were like, wow, we had no idea what you were going through. So really sharing it and educating others about it is very important, because they'll really understand what you're going through and they won't judge you. Thinking, oh, they're just lazy. Like, they'll really understand it, because people think arthritis, they don't think it's a disease that's attacking our organs as well, not just our joints. And my last piece of advice is never compare your journey to others. I know you said that, but seriously, never compare. I don't know how many people message me when they see me working out and they're like, how do you do that? Like, I'll never be able to do that. And I was like, oh, okay, when did you get diagnosed? And they were like, last week. I was like, listen, I've had RA for like 11 years. So never, ever, ever, please, my God, never compare your journey to anybody else's. If you want to work out in the future, cool. You'll work your way to that point. You don't see me in a wheelchair. You don't see me with a cane, because I was at that point, but you don't see me at that point now. Social media, it's a little scary. So never, ever, ever compare. And also spoil yourself. Give yourself that chocolate bar every time you inject or take your medication, because you deserve it.
Yes, I love it. I'm going to grab a chocolate bar right now.
I had one yesterday.
3 blood tests done today.
Oh, wow.
Yes, you got blood work done. You go get those chocolate bars and your frappuccinos, girl. Yes.
Yeah. I'm on that. So I second everything that both of you said. Honestly, community and the right community is so important. I was also in a Facebook group with people with arthritis, and it was just problem after problem after problem and complaint after complaint. And if you want to feel better and get better, or at least get to the point of accepting it and sort of helping your life move on, you need a little bit more positivity in your life. And constantly seeing complaints, it's not going to get you there. It's just going to deplete you even lower and even further down. So finding the right community, 100%. Treating yourself, hell yeah, I'm going to do that today. And not comparing yourself, like you said, to other people, definitely so important. And what I would say as well is to really try to go on that self-discovery journey, because it is a scary thing what's happening. If you're newly diagnosed, or if you're just coming to terms with it, or you're just sort of at the point of talking to people or understanding more about the condition, we really are grieving like our past life, our past bodies, our past self. And I'm honestly, like I mentioned before, I'm such a huge example of that, because my life in terms of my food, my exercise, my mental health was so different to who I am now that I can honestly say it's like 2 completely different people if you met me before. So try to start going on that self-discovery journey to get to know yourself, the new self. Like, what do you need? What does your body need? What does your mind need? What sort of support do you need? I don't know, like all of these things, I think that it's so important to try to dive in deeper and getting to know yourself back once more and again, to really find out what is going to bring you good in life, in your body and your mind, so that you're not causing yourself more physical pain, but also mental pain, because constantly pushing through to try to be who you were beforehand is going to deplete you mentally, because it's going to make you upset that you're not achieving those things as you used to. So trying to find that acceptance and that self-discovery of yourself, I feel that it was such a big part for me, and such a big part of my life still continuously, because we're still getting to know each other. Every single day is different. Every single day you experience a new pain or some new trigger or something like that. So I feel that it's such an important thing to just dive in deeper and ask and sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, how am I feeling? What am I feeling? What is the cause of it? What do I actually want right now? What do I not want right now? And try to figure that out, I feel will bring you a lot more peace and clarity into your life and your journey. And then as a tip to someone who doesn't have arthritis but knows someone, when it comes to the support side, just ask that person what they need. Don't assume that they need physical help, or that they need your advice, or that they need you to constantly message them. just ask them, like, look, I'm here for you. What do you need right now from me? Because it could be different each time, and it could be different for different people. Some people might need you to come and clean their house, and then it'll make them feel better. Some people might want you to come and cook them dinner. Some people might just want to be there to vent to, and they don't actually even want your advice. And some people, maybe at that point, will want you to like boost them up, be like, yeah, no, you go, girl, like you do this, like whatever. So it just depends by each person, by each hour, even. Like in the morning, I'm completely different to how I am in the evening sometimes. And the support that I would need in the morning might be different to the support that I need in the evening. So I feel like if you know someone and you're privileged enough for them to share that they have this with you, like consider yourself lucky already, because you've heard how hard it is for us to share it with other people. Take that gift on and just truly ask that person, what is it that you can do for them?
That's awesome. Yeah. So I think you guys pretty much all summed it up. I agree with all of you. And to kind of lead on to what Paulina said, it's really hard to share what we are going through. I know for me personally, my immediate family only knew, like my siblings and my parents, and I only shared it with a few close friends at the time I was diagnosed. For a few months, though, I didn't even tell my friends. I went to Mayo Clinic, no one knew, because I was scared. I was 18, except one friend knew actually, but you know, eventually I opened up, and then they were more understanding. So it's just, I guess I could also add in, like, don't focus on the should have, would have, could have. You know, like for me, I'm like, well, what if I got diagnosed sooner? What if I started this medication instead of the other one? Would my life be different? You know what I mean? You tend to start thinking about certain aspects of your life, and if you did something differently, would maybe your life be different now? But that doesn't really matter. It's all that matters is what you're doing now for yourself.
Now, I just want to say, like, thank you so much for organizing this. I feel like even if we talk about this every day and we mention the same things every day and we talk to the same people every day, I feel like even though we're doing that, there's going to be one new person that hears it from a different channel, from a different account, from a different time of the day, or from a different media point, like YouTube, podcasts, stories, posts. So I'm so grateful, and I love giving back to the community by just simply sharing what I am experiencing and have experienced. And that sort of leads me on to really look at what we're saying as our own experiences, because like Annie mentioned, everyone is so different. Don't compare your journeys. And what we're saying now, the advice we're giving you now, is what worked for us. So just try out everything and tune into how it makes you feel. See if someone else's tip is going to be useful, or maybe it just doesn't work for you, and that's perfectly fine. And of course, definitely connect with us, especially if you're alone or you just want to talk. We love talking, as you can tell.
Yes, we love it.
So just message us, and 100% we will respond. I don't think that our accounts are like we just let messages go by. We respond to everyone, definitely, eventually, whenever we have enough spoons to respond to people.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found this informative and uplifting in some way. If you like this video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and share this with everyone you know to help raise awareness for juvenile arthritis. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any males who were diagnosed with the condition prior to this video. If you know anyone, please send them my way if you think they would be interested in sharing their stories. I do plan on hosting a panel with males who were diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and showcase a little bit their stories and shine a light on the gender minority within this community, as more women are diagnosed with this condition than men. So I feel it's important to hear their voices, their stories, and what impacts them the most as males. So stay tuned for that as well. Take care, guys. Bye.